Welcome back to the Overrated Experience Sports and Sports Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Blind, and it's another weekend of nonstop betting action here in the bullpen being the basement, where currently we're watching some German Bundesliga soccer. We are watching some English Premier Soccer, and we got college football on the horizon. You got baseball playoff action, but you're here and I'm here to talk about the NFL Week 5 betting action heading into Sunday and Monday. We got you covered to cover the whole card, looking at the point spreads, looking at the over-unders. We got a few player props for you to consider, and we're going to look back on the Thursday nighter that was, and also touch base on some NFL news and some other takes that I may have at the top of my head, and that's just the way it's going to be. So welcome to the Overrated Experience Sports and Sports Betting Podcast. This is your sports betting podcast. I usually kick it off by saying this is the Square podcast. And now thinking about it more and more about, should I call this podcast a Square podcast? Well, the definition of a square bettor is it's a slang term used to describe a casual, inexperienced bettor, basically the opposite of a sharp. And if you look at a sharp definition, which is a sharp bettor, experienced professional or highly skilled sports bettor who consistently makes data-driven, value-based bets, not emotional or fan-based. Well, when I reflect on what I do, reflect on who I am over the years and who I am today when it comes to the world of sports betting, I feel like there's a mixture in there. I can't 100% put myself in the square category. I have to think outside the box. Get it? Square bettor, outside the box. Okay, that's a little bit of sports betting humor. I have a lot of traits that are square, right? Emotional, inexperienced. I got experience. Some of it not great. Some of it not the best, but I got experience. And I'm not a casual bettor. I'm a consistent bettor. And from the sharp perspective, I try to use data-driven decisions and fact-based, value-based bets and try to stay away from emotional. But I still have that weakness a lot of you have as well, that emotion drives some of your betting action. So I'm kind of caught in the middle here. I'm more of the square side, I guess. Not completely in the square. If you think outside the box, again, another joke. Am I a squarp, a square / sharp, or am I a schwer, where it's kind of the same thing but just a different name used? So I'm either a squarp or a schwer. You decide based on listening to the podcast. I encourage you. In fact, I demand you go to our X page, and that is X page. Is that really the term? Follow us on X at Overrated EXPER2. That's Overrated EXPER2. You don't have to remember. You can click in the description of the podcast. Follow us. Let us know you're following, and give a shout out to the podcast. So let me take my sip of coffee because I'm getting a little hoarse here. And here we go. So NFL Week 5. Thursday nighter. If you joined us earlier in the week, we had the Thursday Night Bets podcast. And how did we do? Well, it was a mixed bag, you could say the least. I can tell you nobody was on the 49ers heading into week 5 in the NFL season. They were ridiculously shorthanded at the receiver side of things. Brock Purdy on the bench, Mac Jones starting. The Rams coming off a big win over the Colts at home previous week, and the Colts are red hot. And you look at the Rams as a contender, a potential threat to the Eagles, a potential threat to the Lions. So coming into this game, there's a 7.5 point spread, and the 49ers outright won. I got to give kudos. I got to give a standing ovation to Kyle Shanahan, Mac Jones, Christian McCaffrey, the receivers that were left over like Bourne and others, and the San Fran D. Absolute great performance. It's hard not to respect the effort, the game plan coming into this matchup to not just keep it close, but dominate, for the most part, possession of the ball, especially early on. That the 49ers controlled. Mac Jones kept feeding Christian McCaffrey, what are you going to do? That's the smartest thing you can do. You hand the ball to Christian McCaffrey. You throw it to him out of the backfield. You're expecting some big plays for those guys out in the receiving core that are not your starters, coming up with big plays, big catches, and that's what exactly happened. Mac Jones had a hell of a game, 300-plus yards, and they come away with the win. Some of the outstanding bets we had, where we had Mac Jones over 216.5 passing yards. Yep, no problem there. And Davante Adams' longest reception over 20.5. That hit. That was late. It hit in the fourth quarter, as Davante Adams, I think, had one reception going into the fourth quarter when he started to become a focal point for Matthew Stafford in that passing offense. Puka didn't get the volume that we're accustomed to. He did not crack the 102.5 yards total yardage, passing and receiving, that we thought he would. Of course, this week he doesn't, when I put the money on him. And also Davante Adams scoring a touchdown. Thought they would find him in the end zone. Couldn't do it. Didn't get the win there. Our same game parlay was inches away from hitting, and that was the Rams -2.5, under 54.5, and Kyron Williams 50-plus rush yards. Now, keep in mind, we had it. Williams had a late burst where he hit 60 yards, and then as he's about to walk in the end zone, bam, fumble, turnover. Absolutely critical point of the game. 49ers go down, get the ball back, and they from there, the 49ers eventually take a field goal lead, and the decision now is for McVay, 49er territory, 4th and 1, do I go for it or I kick the tying field goal? They decided to go for it, which is not uncommon here in the NFL in 2025. So they don't get it, and now the narrative is going to be, for the next 10 days, is Sean McVay making a poor 4th down decision. I don't think the fact that he went for it on 4th and 1 is the decision. I think it was the fact that it was a running play that was stuffed, and it just didn't look good. However, in his mind, and I can see it, is they've been pounding the ball, in the entire season with Kyron Williams. His O-line, I'm sure he's had big time faith in, was going to get the job done to get a yard. They didn't get it. He's going to hang the blame on himself. They should have been able to get that first down. So the narrative is going to be that Sean McVay fucked up huge. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but they should have been able to get that yard. The narrative for the 49ers is going to be, for sure, is Mac Jones your quarterback? When Brock Purdy's ready to come back, what do you do? Well, what do you do? My prediction will be that the 49ers will let Mac Jones ride until he sucks, and if he sucks. So there will be no rush to pop Brock Purdy into the lineup once healthy. I don't think they'll rush him back. And I think Mac Jones will get a run. I mean, the jury to me is still out. I mean, there's obviously going to be, and I'm going to say the word narrative many, many times about, Mac Jones, if he would have been with the 49ers instead of the Patriots, this is what we would have seen right from the get-go from the start of his career. I don't buy that necessarily. I think he's in his zone now, but it can quickly fade at any point. That's how day-to-day the NFL is, as far as you're the hero or the zero. And the 49ers do have, what I do like about them, what they do have, is they have the decision-making of what they think is going to win them ball games and what's going to get them to the Super Bowl or closer to the Super Bowl. You've seen that when they drafted Trey Lance, gave up a lot of draft picks, moving up to get him. But when it wasn't working out, they made a quick decision to, here's my phone going off during the podcast. Sorry. So quick decision from there to trade Trey Lance and move on from him and give Brock Purdy the job, even though he was the last pick in the draft. So they have the mentality that if they deem that they have to cut, if they have to move on, if they have to make a decision, they're not necessarily looking at the past as far as the contract they signed or the draft capital or trade capital they gave up. They're gonna make the decision based on what he thinks is gonna win. I think they'll stick to Mac Jones for now, but very quickly go to Brock Purdy if needed. So that's how I see it playing out. So that was the Thursday nighter. Very good game. Not bad. Pretty entertaining, surprising, but you got to give kudos to the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan and the game plan and the execution of that game plan by the 11 guys on the offensive side of the field and the 11 guys on the defensive side of the field. Awesome job. So heading into week 5 of the NFL, actually, before I do that, because that's the reason why you're here, I'm going to throw out there, I'm probably going to do a special one-off review of the Dallas Cowboys Netflix series. I'm on to the last episode. And again, if you're in my age group, 25, 26, no, I'm just kidding, in your late 40s, grew up with the Dallas Cowboys, I'm trying to think. I know the Patriots obviously had a big run with Tom Brady, but I don't know if we've had a team with the characters, owner, coaching, controversy, off the field shenanigans, success, a team you wanted to see lose, but just couldn't lose. And when they did, you loved it, and they rebound and win a Super Bowl. And that's the Dallas Cowboys during that era. And then, from that era on, 30 plus years, they can't even reach an NFC championship game. And you watch, this documentary, and you're hearing the stories of the Jimmy Johnson transition to Barry Switzer, Jerry Jones's interaction with his players, the big three, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin, and then you sprinkle in Deion Sanders. It's a fascinating look at that era of football in the NFL and the impact that these guys had to the game, especially during that 90s era. It was their era, and then how it came to an end. So all right, we're going to get into Sunday card action here. I apologize if the podcast has a little bit of a breakup. I believe I was like 3 games into covering the Sunday until I noticed that there was no recording taking place. So that's very upsetting, very painful to go back and repeat myself, which I got to do here. So I apologize if there was a little bit of a mix-up and it looks confusing. It's because the recording stopped. So we're going to kick off in the Sunday action. We're going to kick it off in London, England, where the Denver Broncos not the Denver Broncos. Man, see, I'm all discombobulated. The Minnesota Vikings will visit the home Cleveland Browns. When I say home, that really means they're in London and Wembley. So Wembley or Tottenham? I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? They're in London. And the Minnesota Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. The Browns are 3.5-point dogs. And Dylan Gabriel, rookie quarterback, will be leading the charge for the Cleveland Browns. Minnesota Vikings have a lot of injuries, especially on the O-line. This total is 35.5. Very low. So what do we got here? I still believe that Kevin O'Connell, the Minnesota Vikings coach, I have more faith that his game plan will allow the Vikings to beat the Cleveland Browns. Dylan Gabriel, we don't know what we're going to get with him. Left-handed quarterback will get the ball out of his hands quickly, probably more quicker than Joe Flacco. And I do believe this game's going to go over 36 points, despite Cleveland having an absolutely outstanding defense. So give me the Vikings 3.5. And I was talking on end in the previous podcast that didn't record of the controversy with Shedeur Sanders, third-string quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. When asked about Dylan Gabriel, he was, mocking, using mime or whatever the hell he was doing to, kind of like show his displeasure for not being the guy picked to start after Joe Flacco. And I guess my thought on this, because there's a lot of people shitting on him, a lot of people that are, negative toward him. You know what? It's the NFL is a cruel world. If the, Shedeur Sanders gets in that under center at some point this season, is lights out, nobody's going to care. They're going to think it's funny. It's going to think, oh, Shedeur Sanders, blah, 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 blah. Just like his dad. His dad was very outspoken, but he was primetime and he produced. And nobody cared what he said. It's like, holy shit, this guy can back what he's talking about. But Shedeur Sanders, what I'll say to this is, if he produces, nobody cares. He'll have a long, leash to do whatever the hell he wants, like any other superstar in any sport. But it becomes tougher and the window very short if his performance is not outshining the off the field stuff. No team is going to want a quarterback that it draws attention, especially if he's not a starting quarterback. So there's a fine balance here. He's shortening his window of opportunity. That doesn't mean if he doesn't get the opportunity that goes wide open again. The NFL will pick you up, chew you, and spit you out, maybe right away or maybe when they're done with you. So that's just the way it is. So we'll see what happens with Shedeur Sanders and his career with the Cleveland Browns and how it goes from there. Now, we move on to the Houston Texans heading into Baltimore. The Baltimore Ravens are without Lamar Jackson, who has a hamstring injury. That's a key note because the Texans are actually a 1.5 favorite, minus 115, game 40 over 40.5. Cooper Rush going to be quarterbacking. The career quarterback, that's a backup. Spent a lot of time backing up in Dallas and actually getting a lot of reps in a lot of games where Dak couldn't stay healthy. So it's not like he is a nobody and could move this offense. I do believe Houston's going to cover this 1.5, but I also think that there's going to be 40.5 points over. So take the over there. Lamar's out. I like C.J. Stroud to pass for over 210.5 yards, minus 114. That's your first prop of the day. Write it down. Now we go into New Orleans. Two struggling football teams. One who has a win under their belt, the New York Giants, with Jackson Dart, new quarterback, who will be the quarterback for the rest of the year, according to Brian Daboll, the coach of the Giants. Visit New Orleans Saints. Saints are actually a 1.5 favorite. This game is listed at 41.5. What do I like here? I do like the Saints to cover. Jackson Dart had a successful debut, but that success was a lot of yards under the ground, a lot of help from the Giant defensive line who's putting pressure, not allowing too much fluid offensive, fluid. I don't know where I'm going to go with that, but they gave the Chargers problems. So, and Justin Herbert. So I think the magic runs thin here. The Saints get it done. They are producing points. I mean, they hung in there with Buffalo until the fourth quarter. I don't think the Giants are a very good football team, whether they are with Jackson Dart or not. But New Orleans gets it done. And the game stays under 41.5. Low scoring game, ugly game. Probably don't watch it. Miami heading into Carolina. Miami off the Monday Nighter short week, beating the Jets, the Jets, Jets. And no Tyreek Hill. I'm sure you've seen the twisted knee, the cartilage, the chaos last Monday night. So they'll be without Tyreek Hill. But the Carolina Panthers are going to be without starting running back Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard is out, and the Carolina Panthers suck. Just putting that out there. You know it. I know it. The Dolphins are not great either, but they have enough weapons. I think they'll get by Carolina and cover the 1.5. This game will go over 44.5. I don't think Miami minds scoring points, and they'll try to keep it up and score about 30 points in this, while Carolina may score about 17. Moving on, Daniel Jones hosts, and the Colts host the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders coming off a loss against the Bears. What are the Raiders? What is Geno Smith? I think they're a team a little lost right now, the direction. They got to break it down offensively. They got to keep the ball on the ground. Gentry, you got to see what you have there. Plus 100 yards. First game that he showed what he brought, similar to Boise State. And then Geno Smith. Average quarterback, man. He's an average quarterback. He's not your franchise quarterback. He's not your starter. He's an average quarterback at best. That's just the way it is. That's the way it goes. That's why Seattle said I'm fine to get rid of him. And he is an average quarterback, a placeholder until you can draft a young quarterback to take your franchise to another level. And I think the Colts will cover the 6.5 here. I think the game's going to stay under 47.5. Daniel Jones, passing yards over 227.5. He's done that all 4 games, more than passing yards. I don't think it changes here. I'm not scared of the Raiders defense to be able to shut Jonathan Taylor and both Daniel Jones down. It's going to be another long day and a lot of questions when it comes to Pete Carroll and the Vegas Raiders. We turn the page on to the next game, which is the game of the day, potentially. Denver Broncos heading over across the country to visit the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champion Eagles. Eagles are 4.5-point favorite. The Denver Broncos coming off a big win over the Cincinnati Bengals. However, the Bengals suck. I think that just shows a little bit of that's a false narrative coming into this game. And I think the 4.5 is very doable for the Eagles to cover. And I think they do. I think this game over under 43.5 is low. I think there'll be points scored in this game. Philadelphia gets it done. They cover the spread. This game goes over. No player props in this one. Dallas Cowboys head into MetLife Stadium, not to take on the Giants, but to take on the New York Jets, the other resident of that stadium. George Pickens, I think, will have a big day again. I like his over 72.5 yard receiving. Now, note, although I do like the Cowboys to cover the 1.5 spread, for you bettors out there, 3 offensive linemen are out, starting linemen for the Cowboys, with another Tyler Smith, questionable. So there is problems on that O-line, and that could be a problem. Even though I think that the Cowboys will get it done, that's an important note to know as you play some wagers on this game. This game, I think, is going to go over 47.5. Justin Fields will put up some fake numbers and make people believe maybe is he a starting quarterback, but he's not a starting quarterback. He may be a starting quarterback, again, a transitional, like the Jets are probably in right now, but that's what he is. He's not going to be your guy that's going to get you past the top echelon of the NFL. Tennessee heads into Arizona. Tennessee absolutely sucks at the moment. Cam Ward, fantastic talent that I think is probably being underutilized so far with the Tennessee Titans. Probably new coaching staff will need to be put in there to get the most out of him. Cardinals get it done. They cover the 8.5, and this game goes at 41.5, minus 102. Tampa Bay, Seattle, you could consider this the game of the week. Big matchup, 2 3-1 teams. Tampa Bay is a 3.5 point underdog. I like Tampa Bay to cover that. I like this game to go over 44.5. I think there'll be a lot of points scored here. And give me Baker Mayfield pass plus rush over 246.5. He's going to put the ball in the air. He's going to be running. He's going to be running for first downs, big chunks like we see all the time. It's going to be the Baker Mayfield show. He'll get that prop done. Remember, Bucky Irving is out for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rachaad White will be carrying the load for the Bucs. And again, Mike Evans remains out. They're obviously Pro Bowl, future Hall of Fame wide receiver. Something to note. Now we get an interesting matchup. Jaden Daniels looks like he's going to return to take on the LA Chargers on the road. Chargers are a 2.5 point favorite. I think the Chargers get it done, but I could be swayed either way. I'm going to say they're going to cover the 2.5 points. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, 47.5. What I do love though is pass and rush for Jaden Daniels to be 255.5, minus 114. You'd have to be crazy to not look at the Giants playbook, what was successful moving the ball against the Chargers last week with Jackson Dart's legs. And who's got better legs than Jaden Daniels? Not many NFL quarterbacks do, so I think that's going to be a factor. That's why I couldn't just sit on the low total passing yards. I think there's going to be a combination where Jaden Daniels gets it done. I'm assuming here he's fully healthy and he's ready to go, and there's no limitations, so that's kind of where my mind's at on that. All right, so that's that, and that's that. And we move on to the Detroit Lions visiting the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals, absolutely horrible. Both sides of the ball. I don't know what they are right now. Can they turn the ship around? They are 2-2, but they looked horrible at 2-2. So their season's not over, but man, if they have any sort of resemblance to what they have the last few weeks, they're dead. They're dead in the water. Detroit Lions look to be peaking at this time. They're 10.5 point favorites in this matchup. Hard to not look at the Lions as covering this and kind of running away with it. I'm going to take the Lions covering the 10.5. This game's going to go over 48.5. The Lions do not take the foot off the gas. They will put up points. There is no quit. There is no stop with Dan Campbell and this Lions offense, this juggernaut. And the Bengals will put up some points, but I just don't think it's going to be at the level where they'll cover that 10.5 point spread. I do like Jared Goff, passing yards over 239.5. That is another player prop. Take it. He's going to be hitting his weapons and they're going to produce big time. Big time. And then the Sunday nighter, we have the New England Patriots, maybe the second best team in the NFC East, which doesn't say much because the Buffalo Bills are still a mile ahead of every other team in that division, including the Patriots. They are an 8.5 point favorite. And this over-under is 49.5. Give me the Bills on a Sunday under the lights. Primetime football. This game to be high scoring, 49.5. Nothing much else to talk about on that one. We all Monday nighter, big matchup. Kansas City, who looked fantastic against the Baltimore Ravens. Looks like they're back. Their offense is rolling. Jacksonville, sneaky win against the 49ers. Are they real? Not real. They are 3 point dogs. I'm going to take the Jags to cover. I think you can have a sneaky a matchup here that the Jacksonville Jaguars get the job done. They cover this spread some way, somehow. This game goes over 46.5, and we got a pretty entertaining Monday nighter. Lock it in. That's what I'm saying. All right. Overrated Experience is done with week 5. Hope you guys get paid off. Go to the window, cash in your checks, and that it's a very profitable weekend. The Overrated Experience is over and out. Bye-bye.